Alright guys, today we're going to continue our work with solving equations, but last class whereas we were solving single-step equations, now we're going to work into multi-step equations where it takes more than one step to solve it. So when solving any two-step equation, there is a process that you need to go through. And what it is we're going to work through the order of operations backwards. Now remember, the order of operations was grouping, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And when you were simplifying expressions, you went this way. But now, when we're solving equations, we want to work backwards. So when solving any two-step equations, first, you want to perform any addition or subtraction. Then, after you take care of the addition or subtraction, you are going to perform any multiplication or division. So you can take a second and write those down, and then we're going to put it to use and see what we mean. So, on number 1, it says solve each of the following equations, and you must show all of your work. That's huge, guys. Just like the last lesson, I expect to see every step. So I have the equation 5x plus 2 equals 27, and my goal is to get x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. Now to do that, again, first we want to handle any addition or subtraction, then multiplication or division. So on the same side as the variable, I want to get rid of any addition or subtraction first. So if you'll notice, we have a 2 being added to this x. That's what I want to get rid of first. And to get rid of a plus 2, we need to subtract 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from the left side of my equal sign and subtract 2 from the right side of my equal sign. Now on the left side, when I subtract 2, those are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with this 5 times x. Now the x isn't by itself yet because we still haven't done with this 5. So I'm left with 5x, bring down my equal sign. Now 27 minus 2 on the right side is 25. Now what we're left with looks like one of those equations that we handled last class. Now, since we handled the addition and subtraction, we can move on to the multiplication or division. So here I'm multiplying 5 times x. To get rid of that, I want to divide each side by 5. On the left side, the 5's cancel out and leave me with x. And on the right side, 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now here again, it's very important to check your work. So I'm going to get out my calculator. And when I substitute 5 in for x, I want to put parentheses around it. So what I mean is, everywhere I see an x, I'm going to substitute in the 5 with parentheses around it. So instead of 5 times x, I want 5 times 5, then plus 2, and I want to see if that equals 27. So let's see. I'm going to take 5, parentheses 5, plus 2, and if it equals 27, which it does, we did it right. That's the correct answer. So again, you should never get any answer wrong on this worksheet because you always have a way to check to see if you did it correctly. On number 2, I have 6x plus 9 equals 27. My goal is to get the variable all by itself on one side of the equal sign. First, we handle any addition or subtraction. So here on the same side as the variable, I am adding a 9, so I want to subtract a 9 from each side of the equation. Now when I subtract 9, I'm going to be left with 6x over here, and 27 minus 9 is 18 over here. Now I can handle the addition or the multiplication or division. So since 6 is being multiplied by x, we're going to divide each side by 6, and I'm left with x equals 3. Now to check if I did that correctly, we substitute it back in with parentheses. So 6, well that's not a 6, 6 parentheses 3, and then we had, not that, come on, then we had plus 9. So 6 parentheses 3 plus 9 equals 27. That's what we started off with. That's what we're okay with. Number 3, 5x plus 16 equals 51. First, we want to handle any addition or subtraction. So I'm adding 16 here. So I want to subtract first. And the 16s will cancel out and leave me with 5x on the left side And 51 minus 16, you might need your calculator for that one. 51 minus 16 will give me 35, so 5x equals 35. Now we can handle the multiplication or division. So I'm multiplying here, so we divide each side by 5. And x equals 7. Now we substitute that back in to check our answer. You should never get a question wrong here. 5 parentheses 7 plus 16 gives me 51, and that's what I started with, so we're good. Number 4, 14n minus 8 equals 34. Our goal is to get the variable by itself, so here's the variable. I want to get that all by itself, so I handle any addition or subtraction first. So I want to get rid of this minus 8, so we're going to add 8 to each side. On the left side, 8s will cancel out, and I'm left with 14n. On the right side, 34 plus 8 gives me 42. Now I can handle any multiplication or division. So I want to get rid of this 14 times n. So I'm going to divide by 14 on each side. And the 14s will cancel out, and then we'll take 42 divided by 14. And we're left with 3. Go ahead and check that in your calculator on your own, please. All right, number 5. First, we want to get rid of any addition or subtraction, so we're going to add 1.5. Now these are decimals, but that's okay. Shouldn't be any different. Same process. Now on the left side, the 1.5s will cancel out, and I'm left with 0.6 times x. And on the right side, I want 1.8 plus 1.5. And that's going to give me 3.3. Then we're going to divide each side by 0.6. So now I want 3.3 divided by 0.6. And x should equal 5.5. Pause the video, check that in your calculator. On number 6, I have 32 minus 2 times n equals 15. Now, this is where things are a little bit tricky because the variable comes second instead of in the first term. We still want to handle any addition or subtraction before we handle any multiplication or division. So to do that, I want to look at the number on the same side as the variable that does not have the variable attached to it, which is this 32. Since a subtraction sign comes after it, a lot of us would be tempted to add 32 to each side, but be careful. What we really need to look at is the sign in front of 32. And since 32 is a positive number, that's like an imaginary plus sign in front of it. That lets me, like an imaginary plus sign. So to get rid of a positive 32, I need to subtract 32 from each side. Now on the left side, the 32s will cancel out, and I'm left with a negative 2n because that minus sign is really attached to that too. So negative 2n equals, and then 15 minus 32 should give me a negative 17. Now I can handle the multiplication or division. Here I have a negative 2 being multiplied by the n, so I want to divide each side by a negative 2. Now, the negative 2's will cancel out. If you need to, you can use your calculator for this, but since it's looking like 17 is not an even number, this is going to stay a fraction. So I'm going to bring down my n equals, I have a negative over a negative, which will result in a positive answer. And 17 over 2 cannot simplify, so n is going to equal a positive 17 over 2. Now again, check it in your calculator. Pretty easy to do. We're just going to have a fraction instead of a whole number. So I'm going to have 32 minus 2 times 17 over 2. Let's see what happens. So 32 minus 2 parentheses, I want to substitute 17 halves in for n, so 17 divided by 2, close my parentheses, And my calculator says I get a result of 15, which is what they said I got, so we're okay. Next, please go ahead and pause the video and do 7, 8, and 9 on your own. Okay, hopefully on number 7 you get x equals 11. On number 8 we get x equals negative 140 because this is a 0.05, not 0.5. And then on number 9 you should get x equals negative 13. Look how I have shown each and every step on each problem. You should not skip any steps, and you should have gotten the right answer on every single one of them because you should check your result at the end. Now be very careful when you're dealing with decimals. Where is that decimal located? Is it 0.05 or 0.5? Because that'll get you a very different answer. Okay, next we're going to deal with fractions, which is not a big deal at all because we have a calculator. So I have 1/3 x minus 3 equals 5. Just like we have been doing, I want to handle any addition or subtraction first. So I'm going to add 3 to each side. Which should leave us with 1/3 x on the left side equals 5 plus 3 is 8. Now, to get the x by itself, I need to get rid of that 1/3. But remember, we do not divide by fractions. Instead, what we need to do is multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply each side by 3 over 1, which is just 3. On the left side, 3 times 1/3 will cancel out and leave me with x. And then 8 times 3 is 24. We can definitely check this answer in our calculator. So we're going to take 1/3 times x minus 3, but since we know that x is 24, I'm going to say parentheses 1/3 times parentheses 24 minus 3. And my calculator says that gives me 5, which is what we have. Number 11, x over 4 plus 6 equals 9. So first, I want to get rid of this plus 6, so I'm going to subtract 6 from each side. On the left side, the plus 6 and the minus 6 cancel out and leave me with x over 4. On the right side, 9 minus 6 is 3. Now, to get the x by itself, I want to get rid of this divided by 4, so I'm going to multiply each side by 4, which will cancel that out, and x equals 12. Go ahead and pause the video. Check that in your calculator. Alright, hopefully what you did when you substituted it in is you got 12 over 4, so parentheses 12, divided by 4, then plus 6 should give us 9. On number 12, there's a typo. It says x over 7x. What this is really a 1 in the numerator, so that needs to be 1 over 7 times x plus 11 equals 15. So now what we can do is we can subtract 11 from each side, and that's going to leave us with 1 over 7 times x equals 4. Then multiply by the reciprocal, so multiply each side by 7 over 1. Cancels out, x equals 28. And check that in your calculator, please. Alright, on number 13, we're going to start by adding 4 to each side. Add or subtract first. Cancels out and leaves me with 7 over 8 times p equals 14. Then, instead of dividing by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So times 8 over 7 times 8 over 7. This cancels out on the left side and leaves me with p. Then 14 times 8 over 7, that's the same thing as 14 over 1 times 8 over 7. So numerator times numerator, we're going to take 14 times 8, which gives me 112, over 1 times 7, which is 7. Now, we need to see if there are any common factors that we can factor out and simplify. So, let's see, 112 over 7. I'm going to first see if 7 goes into 112. So if I take 112 divided by 7, that gives me a nice number of 16. So actually, p just equals 16, box your answer. And that's why it's really important to check to make sure your fractions simplify, because if you left that as 1/12 over 7, you would not have gotten that correct. You need to simplify. Now go ahead and pause the video and substitute that back in and check your answer on the calculator. Alright, number 14. First, addition or subtraction. So I want to get rid of this -2, so I'm going to add 2 to each side. On the left side, the +2 and -2 will cancel out and leave me with -2/3 p equals 12. Now I want to multiply by the reciprocal, so we're going to multiply each side by -3 over 2, which will cancel out, and p is on the left side equals 12 over 1 times -3 over 2. 12 times -3 is -36 over 1 times 2 is 2. Well, these are both even numbers, so we can simplify that. -36 divided by 2 gives me -18. Go ahead and pause the video. Check that in your calculator. On number 15, I have 5 over 7 times t plus 4 equals 19. So subtract 4 from each side. 4's cancel out, and 5 over 7t is going to equal 15. Then multiplied by the reciprocal. And I'm going to teach you a little trick on this one to deal with a whole number times a fraction. What we have been doing is we've been turning these into fractions over 1 and multiplying numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator and then simplifying. But we're going to do a little trick here to make it just a little bit easier. So on the left side it's going to cancel out, and it's definitely going to leave me with t. On the right side, when I take 15, which is a whole number, times 7 over 5, which is a fraction, I want to start with the denominator of this fraction. So I'm going to see how many times does 5 go into 15. So 5 goes into 15 3 times. Basically I'm saying what's 15 divided by 5? It's 3. So 5 goes into 15 3 times, and then I want to take that 3 and multiply it by the numerator, which is 7. So 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. That is the same thing as if I were to say 15 over 1 times 7 over 5 and then simplify, but it's a little bit easier. So go ahead and pause the video, put that into your calculator, and check your answer. Okay, number 16. Now we've got a couple more fractions, but it's not a big deal. We can use our calculator and simplify. So first we're going to handle any addition or subtraction. So first I want to get rid of this -1/3. So I'm going to add 1/3 to each side. Now, on the left side, the 1/3 will cancel out and leave me with 1/2 t. On the right side, 7 plus 1/3, I want my answer as an improper fraction. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. 7 plus parentheses 1/3 equals, then math, enter for my calculator. Your calculator might be different to turn it into an improper fraction. And I get 22 over 3. Now I want to get rid of this 1/2 times t, but remember we do not divide by fractions, instead we multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is just 2 over 1. So the left side is going to cancel out and leave me with t. On the right side, we are taking a fraction times a fraction, so 22 times 2 is 44. 3 times 1 is 3. And that cannot simplify because the factors of 3 are just 1 and 3 does not go into 44. Pause the video, check that with your calculator, please. Alright, we're actually going to cross out 17 because it's the exact same as 16, which is silly. On number 18, again, we start with addition or subtraction. So I'm going to get rid of this -1/2 by adding 1/2 to each side. Left side will cancel out and leave me with 4/3 times p. On the right side, I'm going to need to use my calculator for that. So I'm going to take a -3 plus parentheses 1/2, turn it into a fraction, and I get -5/2. Now to get p by itself, we multiply by the reciprocal. Left side will cancel out and leave me with p. On the right side, -5 times 3 is -15. 2 times 4 is 8. -15 over 8, let's see if that can simplify. They're both not the same. So like this one's even, this one's odd, so that a 2 cannot go into it. 4 can go into 8 but can't go into 15. 8 cannot go into 15, so this is as simplified as it can get. Pause the video, check that into your calculator. Alright, finally the last three, 19, 20, and 21. Those are all yours and all on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and do those three problems. Alright, on number 19, you should get t equals 27 over 2. 20, you should get t equals 57 over 8. And on 21, you should get p equals -133 over 16. Again, you should check all three of these in your calculators, show all work, and if you have any questions, please come and ask.